Right, welcome to today's e-training session on Bracken. We will be talking about efficient authoring today. So we'll be going through ways that you can take content that you have and put them onto a Bracken module in as smooth and nicely looking a way as possible. So getting into it, a lot of times what we end up with content-wise is in the form of a Word document or notes or a PDF. Often it's a PowerPoint document that people have put together for training purposes. So a lot of people ask what the easiest way is to get content into a module and have it look nice. So my most wonderful advice from the start is to make sure that the content that you're working with is good from the beginning. Go through and make sure that everything you've got written down is up to date and it's nicely written, it's easy to understand. Resources are also important. Make sure your web links are appropriate. Any photos, videos, backup resources that you have are also incredibly efficient when it comes to putting together something that's really, really nice and really easy for the user to understand. So when we start off, you'll end up working out of the editing area like this. And usually they start as a blank, kind of a blank canvas slide. So you'll end up with something like this. And what you want to do if you're working off of a Word document, for example, so say, let's take this Word document, and we want to take this paragraph and pull that in. All you would need to do is click copy. And then when you're actually in the Bracken editor, you'll have a new text box that you'll set up. And a lot of times people want to just paste it straight away. But what you end up with is something that's not quite formatted correctly. Often we'll end up with documents that start out kind of like this. And you'll have everything all nicely written out and formatted in Word or Pages or whatever it is you're using. And you'll want to copy this entire thing to move it over. But what happens is that the formatting that sits behind this document ends up getting dragged through and sitting onto the Bracken slide that you're working on. And that can be sometimes a little bit confusing for people to work with. So there are two sneaky ways to get around this. The first one is when you're pasting information in, instead of pasting it directly into this design area, if you click HTML raw, when you paste directly into this, what you get is all the background formatting that was in that document is removed. So what you'll have is just a chunk of text like this. So you'll need to go through and kind of lay it out as you had it before, putting in any of your paragraphs, bullet points, anything that you want included. And then you end up with something really similar to what you had started with. Like so. So a lot of people will want to copy and paste off of Word documents in that manner. It works with PDFs as well. I will tell you that sometimes PDF documents, when you copy them over, they put in weird paragraph pieces in random places. So, for example, you'd have like, it would look a bit like this, where all the paragraphs are already put in. So you'll just have to go in and undo the paragraphs on occasion. So just keep that in mind for future reference. If you're bringing something in from a PowerPoint document, you can bring it in using the From button. So if you click From, it takes you to a module list for whatever you already have in Bracken, but there's also a PowerPoint button down here. Important thing to note when you're pulling a PowerPoint document in, make sure that you're checking the content on these PowerPoint documents. Remember that people need to be reading this. And you can upload a PowerPoint document from your computer. And once you've uploaded it, it'll just import directly into your Bracken editing area, and then you can bring the entire thing in. So when you do that, it'll populate slides with data that has not been formatted yet. So you'll have everything will be the same text size. All of your headings will appear as a single box, and all of your text will just kind of appear as a junk paragraph altogether. So you'll have to go back through and find your subtitles and highlight them and use the quick style to select the SC heading, and you'll need to put them up where they belong and edit your paragraphs out. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. The formatting part takes the longest, but again, I'd like to stress that having your content laid out to begin with is probably your best bet. So the next thing that you can use as a way to kind of get a little bit more function out of your interactions is the lovely back reference button. This is a tool that was an update from last year that has been very, very handy in multiple occasions, but I'll give you a little demonstration on how it's used here. So let's say, for example, that you have a short answer question you would like to ask your users. The trouble is that you don't have the time to mark their answers. As you know, the short answer questions that we work with, you have to have a lecturer or a facilitator actually go back and look at their answers and mark them and then return them. But there's a sneaky way to get around that. What you can do is create your question and then make sure that it's worth no points. And then when you create your back reference button, what you're doing is make sure you have your little purple lilac box around the interaction you want. Click copy. And then on the next screen, you click paste. And what you end up with is this funny little multi-line text box with this weird little back reference button here. My advice to you for this circumstance is to put a border around it so that it actually looks like something. So when the user sees it, it actually makes sense. What happens when you have this live is you set it up so that you bring their back reference answer here as their answer, and then the correct answer you list here, and then you can ask them a question that can be self-marked, asking how they did. So you can use any kind of answer you want here. But what happens when they're using it is if they go in as a preview, you could say, the sky is blue because blah, blah, blah. And when they hit save, the little save icon pops up. You click next, and their answer repeats itself here. So you've got your answer, what the actual answer is, and as a user, you look at it and you say, oh, gosh, I wasn't even close, but I get it now. And you click mark. So this is what transfers through to the sheet that they get at the end, giving what their answers were. So they can look at it and say, okay, I understood that. And so can the facilitator for that matter. So that's pretty much the gist that we've got today to discuss ways to author efficiently and how to bring in content pretty quickly and without much error. Does anyone have any questions about what I've gone over so far, or is everyone all good? And do remember, I've got your microphones muted over here, so if you need to talk, just click your button and unmute yourself, and then you can chat. You can also type in the chat window too. I'll give you a second. All right, we'll move on just to some short answers or short questions that we've gotten since the last e-training session. So we'll go through and try and answer a couple of those with you guys here. And then if you think of anything, just feel free to interrupt. It's no big deal. So we have had some questions around user management and how to make this effective and the easiest ways to go about it. So if you're a user, if you're the facilitator or owner of a zone, you'll have the tools to invite users into your zone. Depending on how your Bracken account is set up, some people automatically accept users in if they have the correct code, and some people have to go back in and officially accept them as a facilitator, but we'll go through kind of what that looks like. So remembering each zone has a limited number of users. If you find you've run out and you need more, or if you don't know how many you have and you want to find out, just get in touch with your Bracken representative and they can tell you. So inviting people into your zone is a three-step process. You have to give them a join code. If you need to find the join code, what you'll do is you'll go to admin. And when you're in admin, the particular zone you're looking for, you would click members, and this join code sits right here. So this is the code you would need to share with people if they needed to come in to that particular area. So step 2, the user registers for your zone from their Bracken account. So if they don't have a Bracken account, they just register, and that's usually listed as a button on your Bracken homepage. Again, if you're having issues or you don't have that button and you'd like that button, just get in contact with your Bracken representative and they can help sort that out for you. But once they've set up their Bracken account, they have access to their profile details. And when you're in your profile details, that's where you have the ability to go through and put in a zone code. So when you set up your Bracken account for the first time, you come straight to the screen and you can fill in all of your information. And then there's this box down here for join codes. So if your users are looking for them, you just go profile details, and then your new join code box is right there. So you would type it in and hit save, and then you'd get access to it over here on this side. Step 3, you accept them into your zone. And this is something that depends on how your actual account is set up. But again, if you need to accept people, you would go into the admin area and members. So we have pending, rejected, active, and facilitators, and you can move people around from here. So let's say we needed to move Dan from a facilitator role to an active member role. You can just move them around however you need. It's just a drag and drop. But when you have someone that's put in a zone code and they haven't been accepted yet, they'll sit here in pending members. So all you have to do is drag them from pending to active, and then they're good to go. So that is how you give users access to your particular Bracken area. And then Kara's asked us a question over here. So the first time that someone logs in after they register, do they automatically go to the profile details page? Yes, they do. They go straight to that page. First off, but if for some reason they've kind of navigated away from it, all they have to do is go back to home, and then profile details sits right here. So when you click profile details, you come straight to this area. No problem. Right, so that's our 1, 2, 3 for that. And then we've got creating and managing pathways. So this is also a question that a lot of people are asking. How do we've got all these nice modules and now we want to make them into a pathway for a course. How do we do it? So what you'll have to do for that circumstance is go again to the admin area. And you may or may not have access to the ability to create paths. If you don't have access and you would like access, again, get in touch with your Bracken representative because they can give you a rundown on how that needs to happen. But if you do have access, you'll have a link here that says paths. If you click that link, it takes you to the managing area for all the pathways that you'll have. So we've got a nice little collection here. But what you'll do is you'll say, I want to put a new pathway together. And you can pick from any number of images. It just depends on what's available to your account. We'll use the help pathway because that's a pretty standard one. You give it a title. So my new course. And then the list of modules that you have access to are all over here on the left in a scrolling area. And you simply pick the ones that you want to use and just drag them. The same way you dragged your users in your member area. You just kind of drag everything that you want to use to where you need it to be. You also have options here to set up on restrictions and kind of how to block your learners. So sometimes if you want them to really understand part A before they go to part B, you would say they must pass all modules on a level to proceed. So what that means is they have to pass all the modules on level 1 before they can get to another level. So if you want to set that up correctly, you have to make sure that your other modules are put in order from a level standpoint. So that means they have to get everything on level 1 before they can go to level 2. They have to pass level 2 before they can go to level 3. You can also set that if you have an assessment module. I don't know how many people use those though, but if you need to set up a module as an assessment, so let's say they're all on the same level, but we want to block them with a test. So this demo module can be our test module. Click assess so that it lights up, and that tells. Yeah? Did you have a question?
Yeah, it was actually, it's Murray again.
Yeah.
And sorry, very sorry to interrupt.
No, you're right.
Just one little thing, which if I can point out, and I'm doing so based on having made this tragic mistake in the past a couple of years ago, is that when you do actually move a module from an available module to a path, make sure it's not an unpublished one. If you put an unpublished one in there, you're going to have some big troubles. And make sure you only put published modules in a path into that path?
Definitely, yes.
It makes
That is
sense.
a very good point. Yeah, and that was something we were going to speak to a bit later, because we did.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
no, you're okay. No worries. It was a question that we'd had on when do you publish modules, and I probably should have done those in other order,
Okay.
but that was a good question. Thanks, Murray. Good point.
No problem.
Listen to Murray. So whenever you have modules you're working with, you do want to have them published before you're sending your pathways live. And we recommend that you don't publish a module until you know for sure that it's ready to go. So make sure you've put it through a couple of testing phases. Make sure you're happy with the content and the questions, because once it's published, you can't edit it. So just keep that in mind when you're building a pathway to send out to people. Publish your modules. That's our best practice advice. But before you publish them, make sure that they're 100% where you want them to be. So points for Murray on that one. So setting up your module restrictions. So for the assessment bit, so let's say this demo module here is our assessment. So they have to read this module and then pass this test before they can get to this module. Doesn't matter really how you level these out. Normally I would put them on the same level so that you've got access to them one after the other, but I would just leave them the same level. The demo module here could be the same level, or it could be a level. No, leave it on the same level too. Just ignore me. All right. So anyway, for your assessment modules, you want to make sure this button is pressed, and you want to make sure you have your assessment module selected where you want it to be. And what that does is they can get to this and they can get to this, but they cannot get to this module until they've passed this one. So does that make sense to everyone? Thumbs up all around. Take your silence as a yes. Does anyone have any questions on setting up pathways or on managing your users for that matter? All right. What does the group mean? Yes, the group. The group means it sets up, let's see. I wonder if I have one I can show you for that. I can, yes, let's do this. We'll just make it on this one. So if you're using a group, what happens is, let's say we've got this demo module from Dan as a group. See how it moves over to the left? It indents it a bit. Basically, all that happens is when you have your modules laid out on this pathway, if you have these listed as a group, they list on top of that module. So it'll look like, I'll show you. It will look like, so it'll look like this. So this is the module that we selected as a group. Mm-hmm. And instead of falling side by side, it just kind of shows up as a subtitle to this one. So it just lines them up together. That's basically what a group means. No problem. All right. Any questions about anything else, guys? Okay. Well, just to wrap it up, we wanted to let you know that we do have help modules that are available on live.brackenlearning.com that you guys will all have access to. To get access, you either need to have a live.brackenlearning.com user account, or you need to create one. If for some reason you are having issues creating one, get in touch with someone here and we can help you out putting that together. But what you'll do when you're logged into live.brackenlearning.com is you will come to the Getting Started with Bracken pathway, which looks like this. And we have nice little help modules for you on a variety of different subjects. So some of the things that we've covered today are delivering your modules using pathways, which we just talked about, and then managing users for facilitators, another thing we've discussed. And we've got creating and editing modules, which was kind of the beginning of this session. So we've got a couple of other ones that you can look at your leisure. And like I said before, if you guys run into any questions or problems, just feel free, click your Bracken account manager and email, and we can sort out what's going on and find a way to help you. Any other questions before we close the meeting for today? All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again for the next e-training session. You guys have a nice day.